Star Wars Battlefront 2 is one of the greatest Star Wars Battlefront games of all time. Has a ton of improvements over the original, and a lot of people would prefer that over the original and not even consider playing the original. But it's not a flawless game. It does have a few things it does not do right. So today, I wanted to go over 5 things that I actually prefer about the original Battlefront. Some people are going to be a little bit mixed on some of these. Some of them may not agree with them. Some may completely agree with them. These are all completely subjective, of course. None of these are actually objective, of course. But yeah, there are 5 things that the original does do better. So let's get right into it. The maps in Battlefront 1 are far superior than in the second game. A lot of people do definitely agree on this. This is not a huge controversial take. They're not that big of a downgrade, all things considered, but the classic maps like Tatooine, Dune Sea, Naboo Plains are missing, and that's a big L in the second game. And maps like Hoth are much worse than they are in the first game and the second game, for example. And another map like Naboo Theed, it's not as good as it was in the original. Having it take place at night is a pretty cool take, and it looks pretty cool in the nighttime, but it just doesn't play as good as it did. It doesn't look as good as it did in the first game, for example. A map like Hoth loses the command post that it had in the first game, and not having Bestborn platforms just sucks, because Bestborn platforms is one of the best. And then we got a huge downgrade in Geonosis as well. Geonosis was nowhere close as good as it was in the original game. Geonosis was completely reworked for this game, and it's because, again, the balance was pretty terrible in the first game's Geonosis, sure, but that is also because of the fact that AI pathing was kind of broken in that map, because the clones couldn't properly command where they were going because of all the dropships in the back. That was the biggest problem with the map, but they still got rid of it nonetheless and replaced it with one of the worst maps in Battlefront history. And the other thing too is that Dune Sea is a GOAT. It is generally probably the best map in all of Battlefront. It offers such a rich, unique battle experience, with the native tribe of the Tusken Raiders having all 3 vehicle types inside of the map, a unique sand vehicle, as well as the Sarlacc pit in the middle of the map, causing even more chaos. It is so unique and has so many different ways to play it. Whether you want to take a ship, go up top, snipe, you want to rush into the back, you want to slowly make your way forward and fight with the guys, take one of those drop ship things and drop a bunch of guys off in their back command post. There's so many ways to play it. And a lot of Battlefront 2 maps just don't have that unique variety this map has. And that alone is a huge downgrade. And understandable, because the map did have a lot of aspects to it that they took out of the second one. But a map like Naboo Plains, there was no reason to get rid of Naboo Plains. It had the Gungans in there, which could have been easy programmable, because they didn't do very much. All they did was repair things. They didn't throw grenades or anything like that, versus something like the Tusken Raiders that were their own unique faction. That didn't really happen. And it was just, there was no reason not to include it, of course. And then let's be real here. Most of us didn't have the Xbox DLC growing up. If you played on the PS2, you were just completely out of that stuff, for example. You didn't have Bespin coming back or Renvar coming back, right? And Renvar is one of the best maps of all time. Same with Cloud City, another one of the best maps in the first game. Sure, you got Yavin Arena back, because why would you want that map? That map sucks. But that's not the point. Every other map was in the DLC was amazing, and most of us didn't get those. So let's be real here. We're not really going to include that, because we honestly didn't have it, most of us. I know I didn't have it growing up, and I had an Xbox. I didn't even know the DLC was a thing until I was older. So overall, the maps in Battlefront 2 are just worse than they are in the first game. But saying they're worse than they are in the first game isn't saying that they were bad. Not by any means were the maps in the second game bad. It's just that they didn't live up to the standards and uniqueness of the first game, and they would have made the second game better in every way if they had the same maps that they had on Battlefront 1. My second point that makes the first Battlefront better than the second is the difficulty. We know how easy the second game can be. You can put it on elite difficulty, and the AI is still garbage. They just seem to just kill themselves and walk off cliffs and not strafe at all and have horrible shots. And you'll capture a command post that's a key point, and they'll just ignore you. They'll just walk right by you and go, well, that sucks, right? And they'll not get into vehicles. They don't have good aim in the vehicles. And sure, you can say they were a bit too strong on hard difficult in the first game. Sure, you can say that. But there's no challenge in the second game when you're playing against the enemies, because they're just so bad. They don't do anything good at all. They make the game a complete cakewalk. Then on top of that, you have all the different things that make you overpowered in this game, being the power-ups, your reward weapons, and the heroes. I'm not saying that's a bad thing to have all these and to get overpowered and be rewarded to be overpowered. That's a great thing in a game. It's amazing to have that. But unfortunately, this game just doesn't balance it very well, because it makes it piss easy once you get all that. The heroes alone can just break maps completely. You get a hero like Grievous or Luke or Obi-Wan or Darth Maul, you can just go right to their command post and capture it in the back one and have a pincer attack on them and just completely destroy them. It's a joke. And is it fun? Yes, it is fun. So it does make up for that, but it doesn't help the fact that it's just completely and totally easy. Now, it can be a lot harder when you're playing online with a bunch of sweats. But, like, I don't like doing that personally. I'm not a huge fan of playing online in Battlefront. I like the casual experience of Battlefront. And unfortunately, Battlefront 2 just doesn't have a lot of replayability because of how easy it is. The game's just so simple. You just, like, run to the back and, like, it's just always the same thing. It gets dry really quickly. It's a big problem I have with the second Battlefront. And it kind of leads into the difficulty and it kind of leads into replayability. Because how easy it is, it's just not that replayable in my opinion. I don't go back to it as much. And I'll be honest, I played this game way more as a kid when I was growing up than I did the first game. I'm not going to lie to you, okay? Because we were so hyped for this game to come out. All the new features and all that. So that is part of the reason why I don't like it as much. But it still doesn't help the fact that it's just so damn easy to play now. Like, it's just a complete joke to play this game and, like, try and have a challenge. Even challenge runs are easy, man. Like, they just messed the difficulty up in this game. I just wish the Elite was actually Elite and not a fucking joke. The first Battlefront allowed you to have ships on the ground maps. For example, maps like Bestman Platforms, Kashyyyk Islands, Tatooine Dune Sea, and even Naboo Plains. Only on console, not PC apparently. What? Allows you to do that. And it's really awesome. It makes the maps so much fun and just like such a dynamic experience. And it can be a bit OP, I will admit that, because you can just do strafe runs the entire time and be a loser. But if you're doing that, you're not going to have fun, because that's just not fun. Because the thing that makes them fun is they open up huge opportunities for unique gameplay experiences. Like being able to find unique sniping spots in Dune Sea, camping with the gunship, and moving down the gun down people down, which is actually a lot of fun. Or we're doing bombing runs when you have the bombers. You know how much fun that is to do a bombing run? It's actually like, oh my god, it's so cool. Like what other game allows you to do that? And like, it's just awesome. And like, you're only restricted to a vehicle in Hoth, like, because you have the snow speeders, of course. You can't get rid of the snow speeders in Hoth. That's what it's known for, right? But like, you can't do it in the other maps. And like, they couldn't do it in the second game because of the fact that the ships were more tuned for the huge open spaces. No pun intended. And because the space maps were where it was at, right? Because the ships move way faster because of that. And if you put them into a Battlefront 2 map, they're just too fast and like they don't work. All right? If you played any mods, you'll know that if you give it a try. And it sucks because again, they just open such a very huge variety, and it's not good. But like, it's a fair decision because it is genuinely a miracle that the developers had the time to make this game, because the short period of time that this game was in development was crazy. So it sucks, but you know what? I still can't defend it that it wasn't in the second game. Now, this point is a bit more subjective than the rest, but I do think the graphics in Battlefront 1 look better than the second game. There's just something about the lighting than the first game that just hits harder and just gives you that like Star Wars Battlefront feel. Like, the second game does have higher quality textures and all that, technically speaking, but there's just something about the way the game looks. It feels more like Star Wars in the first Battlefront than the second. You know, like when you look at something like the AT-AT, for example, the tank that the droids have in Naboo Theed, right? It looks like the movies, you know? It's got that like feel, and the sound effects too. They feel more like Star Wars, because like in Battlefront 2, each vehicle has like that generic fire missiles that shoot out of it, and it just feels like something from a PS2 game. And of course these are PS2 games, but that's not the point. Like, they just feel very PS2 game-y, like that generation, you know what I mean? And it's just like, I don't know, it's like whatever. And like, I don't know, and each of the troopers though, they look spot on in the first game, aside from like the rebels, like because they're just guys fighting. Like, that's always like up for interpretation, because like there wasn't a whole lot to work on in the movies aside from a couple battles with the rebels, you know what I mean? Like, most of them are modeled after the guys in Endor, right? So like, it's like, okay, cool, whatever. But anyways, we're not talking about that. Anyways, so yeah, but it's like, I don't know, it just, the factions look so much better than they do in the first game, especially like the droids, the Empire, and the clones. Especially the droids, though, they got that 1999 feel that like Phantom Menace had, and it's just so cool, man. Like you really feel like you're in the movie once again. Even like the ships, they just, I don't know, the sound effects are good in the second game, but like, and the graphics are good. It's just something about it. It feels more stylized than the first game does. And the first game feels more like Star Wars, but this feels like a stylized version of Star Wars in a way in the second game. And it doesn't look bad by any means, but like the lighting just looks more real. And like a good example is Tatooine, Mos Eisley. Here's a side-by-side comparison. You can look for yourself. It looks way better in the first game than it does in the second game. And granted, that map still looks like a fucking mess on both games because they just like could not get those textures to look the way they did in the movies. Like, I don't know how they explain that. It just doesn't like have that like sandy town feel that you have in the movies. Like, it looks so much better in the first game though. It just looks so gross in the second game. And it's funny because the map's way better in the second game, but who cares? Like, yeah, I don't know. It looks, just overall though, the graphics in the first game, I just prefer sound effects, all that, the presentation overall. I just preferred in the first game over the second. Battlefront 2 makes things similar from the first game, with the classics being basically the same amongst each of the factions. There's not a huge difference between the Engineer, Sniper, and Heavy class, or any difference whatsoever. Each faction has them exactly the same, and there's very slight differences between the basic soldier between each of them, of course excluding the CIS with the Super Battle Droid. That's the only huge exception. Now, some might say this is a big improvement, or they like it better than the original, but for me, you know, it just kind of sucks. Like, when I was a kid, for example, I really loved the Rebel Heavy Trooper. I love that he shot 2 rockets from his rocket launcher instead of 1. Like, of course, now I know it's awful, because, like, but, like, still, it was so awesome, man. Like, I love this guy. He's, like, the best class in the game, is what I was thinking at the time. And, like, he's not the same as the rest of them, where now he is in the second Battlefront. And it just gives away that uniqueness. Or how about the Clone Engineer being the only class in the game to have a shock rifle? Was it awful? Yeah, it was fucking atrocious. Was it unique? Yeah, and I loved trying to use it thinking it was good. Alright? And, like, man, and the argument that non-unlockable classes make up for that is a fair argument, but they really do not, because let's be real here, most of us are using the basic 4 classes when we're playing Battlefront. You do occasionally use those unlockable classes, but not too often, because they're really not that good in comparison. I guess because the Engineer is just so broken in Battlefront 2, but like, I don't know, it's just, there's something about it. It gives you like the upper hand and like the unique feeling when you're playing each faction, you know? Like, say you're playing like on a map, like a close quarters map, like Best Platforms, right? Where you got those close quarter battles. You're gonna want to use like the Rebels or even the droid engineer, because they're good at close ranges. And same with the Empire engineer, right? But you're not gonna want to use the clone one because he sucks ass, right? But you know, because you got that grenade launcher. It's so unique. It gives you the upper hand. It gives that unique experience. You don't get that unique experience in the second game like you do with the first, with the factions. They all feel pretty much the same, with occasional different like vehicles and two different classes, which are definitely different. They're all completely different, sure, but like it doesn't make you really feel like you're playing as like the Empire or playing as like the CIS like you do in the first game. There's just something about it in the first game that makes it feel so much more immersive, and it just gives you such a variety with it too. And just like I like that variety that it gives you, and just it does need variety in the first game, I'm not gonna lie to you there, but it's just, oh man, I just love that. I love that so much, that having those is that an option. It's just so cool having that, and just I really missed it in the second game. Let me be real here. So those are my 5 things I prefer in the original Battlefront over the second game. Let me know what you would put as your 5 preferred things about the original, or maybe even the 5 things you prefer over the original from the second game. Whatever you think. Yeah, you all let me know in the comments down below. Be sure to let me know, because I want to know. I really want to know. Anyways, I'll see you all next time.